Shamanism 108, and we're talking about soul retrieval. We're talking about soul retrieval as a practice. We're going to talk about the different aspects, and I really hope that you have gone through the rest of this chapter and that you've come to this after having done Shamanism 107. Please make sure that you do these in order and that you're not skipping any part. I want you to have a strong grounding and feel like you really have meat on your bones when it comes to this work. This is deep work. Why do we do soul retrieval? Well, because we feel like we're not all here. We feel fragmented. We feel like something essential of us is missing. And most of us have soul loss to some degree. Some of us have been deeply traumatized by life, and we can feel quite dispirited. So what is soul loss? Well, soul loss is bringing them back, the many little pieces, so we can have one big piece. And so much of the reasons or the causes of our soul loss originate in our childhood. Little children are innocent and small and entirely dependent on others, and they lack the ability to defend themselves. In an ideal utopia of a world, we could grow up whole and healthy into powerful spiritual adults and wise elders without trauma. But children living in the world as it is today, the real world, the reality as it is, don't know how to protect themselves, and therefore, as children, we are especially susceptible to having our souls fragmented. And while we need to grow up and come to terms with the realities of the world we inhabit and come out of our ignorant innocence and dependence on others, losing our innocence through trauma is not the way to create a strong human who's able to interdepend, collaborate, and co-create with others. Those traumatic experiences that we have that cause us to lose our soul mean that parts of us get stuck in time. And so we cannot move forward in an adult way of being if we're still stuck somewhere back in our childhood. If our past pain projects into the present, we cannot be at peace. We need to come into full peace with ourselves to live fully in our power in the present. And I want to say too that it's important that shamanism isn't a set of beliefs or ideas as much as it is a set of skills. And that's what I want to teach you here. And soul retrieval isn't a therapy. It isn't something that we learn about in books. It's something that we learn through practice, through experience. All of these things that I'm sharing with you, that I'm wanting to impart, I need you to validate them and validate your own experience through your own first-hand experience. If something that I say does not resonate, don't take it and think that I know better than you who you are. That is not the way it works. I don't want to teach a method that makes you a misaligned adult acting like a child in the world. The key is also to integrate these pieces so that we are in partnership with ourselves, body, mind, spirit, and all of our soul parts working together for a common goal, for us to live in our highest potential. Therefore, the work continues beyond the soul retrieval. It's also important to understand that these pieces will come with a lot of information, with a lot of knowledge. And when they return, we need to listen to them because they come back as allies, bringing a wealth of wisdom. So, does everyone need soul retrieval? Well, maybe. The first thing is, how is your life functioning? Do you struggle with any of the symptoms we talked about in Shamanism 107? I think people know intuitively if they need a soul retrieval. It sort of resonates deep in the core, right? And we can all work on creating a better life for ourselves, but a specific healing technique like soul retrieval isn't always necessary either. And it doesn't mean that it solves all of our issues right away. Life after soul retrieval is still practice. When we come back home and we're home in ourselves, how do we then move around our home? How do we want to decorate it? Do we need to rebuild it somewhere? Do we need to build another room? Do we need to plant more flowers in our garden, how do we update ourselves to be fully present? Those are questions to take into this practice. Another question is, how many soul retrievals do we need? Well, not so simple to answer either, because we can only return a certain number of soul parts at a time, because when the soul parts that have been lost come back, they come back with the pain that they experienced in the original trauma. Those memories can be quite challenging to reintegrate. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves with too many memories or emotional pain. What we need to do, what is very important, is that we trust our guides, our power animal, to help us when they say it's enough. We stop searching and we focus on integrating the soul parts. I recommend that we wait about 3 to 4 months at least before we do another soul retrieval. And depending on how blocked we've been before, sometimes we only have a certain amount of energy to handle the new information. And a person's kind of foundational constitution, which is dependent on many things like genetics, but also on our diet and how much we exercise, for example, will also determine how much we can handle to receive. What I do want to say is I don't think people need a lot of soul retrievals. Classically, a soul retrieval was only given after a specific trauma, if a person had a serious illness or if they were in a coma. Sometimes the shaman had to work for several days on behalf of one person. Most people perhaps, one soul retrieval could be enough. Perhaps for some people they need 2, and then they feel that state of wholeness and health. But it depends on the person. All of this is very dependent on circumstance and the individual's energy. I also want to say that soul retrieval is not a quick fix. It's not something that you do and then you're done and you never need to think about it again. It's a process, and it's a process that can take anywhere from a week to 6 months. I also want to talk about the importance of learning through this process so that we can avoid further soul loss. How do we avoid further soul loss? Well, sometimes soul loss can be necessary. For example, if we're in a car accident or we have some kind of intense physical trauma, the soul leaving helps us survive that experience, because if we were totally present during such a trauma, we might not survive at all. We might die from the pain. In other situations, we do have control. So for example, if being in the presence of another person makes you feel drained, like your energy is being sucked out, we need to learn to protect ourselves. Call power to you. Hold yourself inside of your own boundaries. In relationships, in your life, work on becoming a spiritual adult. Whenever it's possible, avoid giving your power or your energy away to others. Have a supportive environment. And remember, giving a piece of yourself does not serve you or the other person. Also remember that thieving soul parts from other people is, I was going to say wrong, and I think that I'm going to say it's wrong. Don't do it. Now there's a few limitations as well to consider in the soul retrieval. So not everybody who comes for a soul retrieval are going to have this dramatic effect, and some people don't even have any effect at all. And this might be because the soul loss wasn't very significant. It might be too subtle. Maybe the person is not very sensitive, so they're not really aware. I think also it's possible that a person subconsciously or unconsciously is not quite ready to retrieve that soul part. They might not be able to handle the pain that comes back with it. They might not be able to let go of the state of disease or illness that they're in. Maybe it's very comfortable, even though it's not comfortable, but they've kind of adjusted to that state. Maybe they're not able to handle the return of the memories. We're all unique, and our being's right timing for healing, change, and re-experiencing life traumas has to be honored. Could also be that a person's ego mind, thinks that soul retrieval is, bullshit, and they're not wanting to be open to it. And this blocks any benefits as well. Some people will say they think it's mumbo jumbo or gloop, and they just don't want to have it. It's also possible that people really know for themselves and say, I'm not ready for this to come back. And so we need to respect that and not push this work on people. It's a risk. What if it doesn't work? Or if you think, I can't do it, it will never happen, then nothing will happen, right? You are in control of your experience. And then you can say to yourself, yeah, I was right. I knew it wouldn't work. Because taking a risk and trusting is scary. What if you take the risk and it doesn't work? What if you do the whole work of soul retrieval and you can't handle it and you go crazy? Trust yourself, trust your feeling. If this feels like the right thing for you to do, trust that you can handle any experience coming back, any memories coming back. It's also important going into this that we don't move forward holding on to soul parts that we've stolen from somebody else. There is a audio that you can listen to in the same chapter called Returning a Stolen Soul, and I would really encourage you to go through that if in any way you resonate with this feeling that you might have taken on soul parts from somebody else. And again, this is not coming from a place of judgment. We understand that soul loss begets soul loss, and so if you've lost parts of your soul, it makes perfect sense that you would have unconsciously, unintentionally stolen parts of others. So again, if this resonates with you, I really encourage you to do that exercise before you move into the soul retrieval. And it's also really important to remember the children, to remember our own stories and allow ourselves to have our full feelings. We can feel a lot of relief as the missing pieces of our soul start to fall into place. It can also be a big relief when these unseen problems that we've been feeling for so long are identified. But it might be scary as well as our own inner child starts to wake up, because that child that lives inside might come back with her story, and that child's fear can be quite overwhelming for an adult to feel. Know that you have the tools to handle everything. Breathe and experience yourself and the feelings that come. If you don't, the feelings might intensify. Listen. Go inside yourself and ask that frightened, sad, or angry, or lost voice to speak to you. Listen to their story. Center yourself and breathe. And remember that you're old today. Be in that adult part. Your adult knows how to take care of your child, how to comfort and protect her. Remember what year you're in. Remember everything that you've done so far and how far you've come. Stay in the present. Reach down inside yourself for all the tools and all the knowledge that you have to comfort your inner child. You don't need to get stuck in the feelings of the past. It's important to acknowledge them, but remember, you're an adult and you have different choices available to you than you did as a child. And explain this to your child and comfort her. Life is different now, and help assure your child that you're working on creating a good and safe life for yourself. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to take an adult stance and use all this wisdom that you embody. So let's talk about becoming whole. And this is a picture, one of many pictures of Hel, the Norse goddess of the underworld. Hel is a word that means whole, and is the root word of the words heal and holy. And Hel was then turned into the goddess of death, who resides in the underworld, which then Christianity sort of metamorphosed and transmuted into hell, to keep us scared of the underworld, to keep us away from this place where really we have our power. We have to go to the underworld to find our power animal. We have to go to the underworld to search for the lost soul parts, to retrieve them and to bring them back. This journey can be performed best by a shaman or a shamanic practitioner, but it can also be done by you, because you are a shaman. You have a shaman inside yourself. Remember as well that the word shaman means one who sees in the dark. And the shaman fearlessly goes into the underworld and sees with a strong eye or with their heart. Being able to travel into these spirit worlds is, again, the very definition of a shaman. A shaman journeys at their own will. A shaman can go into the non-ordinary reality and come back to ordinary reality at will. We use tools. We use the tools that we've talked about: drumming, music, breathing. But it is the journey that creates the traveler. So we have to take this journey if we want to become a journey maker. Understanding the underworld is essential knowledge and a big part of the skill set of a shaman. Understanding the underworld is crucial to healing, to finding the cure. Like explorers adventuring in earthly, difficult terrains, shamans have to know how to conduct ourselves in the non-ordinary worlds if we want to do our work successfully. The better our map is of the territory, the better our understanding of where we're going, the more success we will have as a shaman. And tracking a person's soul isn't as hard as it might sound. This is where these key elements of the shamanic practice, intention, trust, respect, and intuition really come into play, because we don't know where the soul is. We have to follow the guidance. And we never know exactly what's going to happen or where we're going to go. We don't know if the soul is going to be only in the underworld or somewhere frozen in time, or perhaps even in the upper world. It could happen. And we can't predict how we're going to feel or what our experience is going to be. The important part is that we look and we search. We go on the adventure. Because we have helping spirits and our power animal to guide us. The numinous are on our side. Great forces exist in this world that want us to help people bring themselves back and become whole and healthy. When we go into the non-ordinary reality, the rules of ordinary, mundane, consensual reality are suspended. We can have our power places there. Just like we have places in the ordinary world that make us feel peaceful and happy, so shamans will have places in the other worlds where we feel powerful, where we feel able to relax, and where we have friends and allies. I want to put a word of warning here, though. There are sometimes situations where a person's soul might have been stolen by malevolent spirits or even the dead, and they might take it to the land of the dead. If that happens, I recommend that you do not continue your search. I recommend that you turn around, because in order to go into the land of the dead and retrieve a soul, you need to be extremely strong as a shaman, and you need to have really powerful skills. So if you notice that that's where you're being led, turn around and come back. That is not a place for you to go at this level of your work. If that happens, contact me and let's do it together, and I will journey together with you to keep you safe. But then let's talk about the results of a soul retrieval. What happens? Well, I said it in Shamanism 107. It's much easier to talk about soul loss and the effects of soul loss than it is to talk about the effects of soul retrieval, because every person is unique and every experience is different. So there's no way to predict what will happen. Our psyche has its own way to deal with any issues that come up. But what I can say is that the effects of soul retrieval are varied, and they're both short and long term. Immediately after, people might feel more present or more filled up. I've had people say that it's like they took off a pair of glasses that made everything black and white, and the colors and everything are brighter. People might feel bigger, they might feel lighter, they might feel more awakened, smell better, hear better, feel better, might feel more in their bodies. People who are ill or depleted of energy might immediately feel that they have more power and strength. All these changes can be a little bit disorienting for a few days, but that's actually a positive thing, because when a person's been out of their body for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years and they're suddenly inside themselves, everything will seem different. It may compare to leaning one side or just jumping on one leg and then suddenly having access to both feet and being able to walk upright. We'll experience the world differently. We might have been living in a world that was scary and dark for years and kind of seeing only the negatives in other people. And then when we're fully integrated, that scary feeling goes away and suddenly we see the best in people and we feel safe, we feel more abundant, we feel better able to do our work and fulfill our soul's purpose. So let's talk about some signs of successful soul retrieval. Why should you do this? I've scared you a little bit now, but what is possible? Well, so much. When we're fully home, like I said, we might have a more realistic attitude about life and the people around us. It might be easier to accept other people because we started accepting ourselves. It might also mean that we have a sort of reality check and we realize that certain relationships need to end. We need to take our power back. I think either way, whatever happens, most people after a soul retrieval will find that the way that we relate to others change, because the way we relate to ourselves change. When we move into right relationships with ourselves, it's much easier to move into right relationships with others and the world around us. When we bring back our soul, our vitality, and our original essence, the person that we were meant to be, our light and our desire for true love and for joy comes back. We become more playful. In this state, we attract people who have moved toward a higher great state of wholeness themselves. We mirror and we are mirrored by people who are whole and healthy. If we come back to dysfunction, we might really notice that I don't want to play this game anymore, and that's okay. We might also notice that it's easier to forgive. We might notice that our body's healing abilities are better. We might notice that old scars disappear. We might notice that our skin is more clear. We might notice that it's easier for us to get motivated and go to the gym or finish our tasks, or that things like ADHD symptoms ease up. We might notice that it's easier to keep our house clean. Less clutter sort of happens. We might notice that we are no longer losing our keys all the time. We might notice that our appetite changes. Again, none of these things are guaranteed, and none of these things are applicable to everybody. We are all unique beings. But a big part of soul retrieval that we need to talk about is the aftercare or the integration process. Because after the lost parts of our soul come back, we need to integrate those parts and we need to reconfigure the flow of energy to all aspects of ourselves. And especially the physical body will take some time to adjust to these changes. The body is the slowest part of us, right? So the most dense energetically. And during the integration phase, the body will start to show signs of that. And that can take up to 4 weeks. And these signs can be that we're feeling a little bit tired. It can be that we have, like I said before, memories coming back, kind of flashbacks of things coming back. You start noticing as well that things around you will change. Your perspective on life changes. You might notice as well that you don't feel so upset. You might notice that you feel more upset for no reason. It's probably a good idea to tell those people who are closest to you about your soul retrieval before, so that they can be mindful of the sensitive nature of your being for the coming month. It's also a really good idea to make sure that you do have a support system for the integration phase. when we bring these soul pieces back, they will feel like children in a lot of ways, depending on when the trauma happened, of course. If it happened last year, less so, right? If you broke up with your partner 2 years ago and you feel like, a part of your soul went with them and you're bringing it back now, that part of your soul might still feel sad about it, even though you yourself have moved on. So whatever it is that having that kind of welcome party and welcoming them back home and making them feel wanted, making them feel safe, and making those parts trust you. So here are some ideas for journaling that you might want to do immediately after your soul retrieval. So, or at any time in the next few weeks. How this situation affected your choices. How is your life today? What decisions did you do that were affected by your soul loss that you would do differently now? And how will you respond and react to future situations based on how you feel now, whole in yourself? I also want to talk about some other key and important aspects of the reintegration process, and these are sort of more immediate things to do. So always after any type of healing work, making sure that we're hydrated, making sure that there's enough water in our bodies to both integrate but also release any kind of buildup or stagnation, to rest, to breathe deep, to go for walks, to dance, to sing, to play. These are all things that we can do with our physical body. The other element is in the mind, so really being attuned to ourselves. So maybe you don't do a soul retrieval on a Sunday night, for example, and then have a busy Monday immediately after, but give yourself time to really be calm and look inward. I really recommend journaling, meditating, creating something. Traditionally, after any kind of big journey, shamanic practitioners would create something. A lot of times they would create a mask or some kind of art piece to physically manifest a item to contain the energy of that experience. It can also be nice for sort of future to set some intentions for what do you want to do now that you are returned to self. Also very important, very, very important. After your soul retrieval, give it at least 24 hours before you share about your experience. This is because the soul retrieval is often felt most strongly in the first day. And because soul retrieval doesn't really translate easily into words, if you start talking about it or analyzing the experience with others, you can sort of dissipate the positive energy that you've received. Especially if the other person is not a far-out fruitcake who can handle this type of stuff, and they might put negativity into your experience. Another thing is when your soul parts come back, to notice if you really are holding on to something that doesn't belong to you and make sure that you return it. So what are some other signs that soul loss has happened? So for example, having that kind of flashbacks or having past emotions or memories coming back. We might also experience really vivid dreams, dreams that are almost lucid dreaming or astral projection, and this is really part of the integration process because soul retrieval will really affect your third eye, and this will cause much more intense dreams. And you might experience connection to the spirit world or having a surprise visit from your ancestors. You might receive angelic messages depending on who you are and what your relationship is to the numinous. These dreams will leave an impact and they won't vanish like ordinary dreams that we have every day. It's also very likely that you feel a deeper sense of inner peace. Even though we might be having these flashbacks and strong emotions, that deep sense of peace, of wholeness, will be permeating every part of your being. It's also very likely that you experience a profound sense of connection because after a soul retrieval, your brain function will improve. Your brain frequency will elevate from beta to alpha, from alpha to theta, which enhances your psychic capabilities, meaning that you will feel more connected to the universe. And this is true for a lot of people. And we might even feel like the universe is responding to us or communicating with us directly. You may also feel presence with yourself and connected to yourself, which is absolutely beautiful. There's also a real possibility of you feeling more integrity within yourself. More integrity of yourself, meaning, you know what you are, you know what you're about, you know what you're willing to stand for, you know what you're willing to stand up for, you know what your purpose is. All of those things coming back. You might also notice physical changes in your body. It could be that you get some sort of flu or achy sensations. You might feel a bit nauseous. All these things are completely normal. You might also notice changes in appetite. You might notice that your body suddenly loses a whole bunch of weight, or perhaps you'll be putting on some weight depending on, again, what your true balance really is. You might also actually free up a whole bunch of pain that you've been holding on to when the soul comes back. So if you've had niggly pain in your back or your knees or your shoulder, that might completely disappear. Also very possible that you start having a more immediate connection with the numinous, with the invisible realm, with your guides, with your spirit guides, with your power animal, all these sort of quote-unquote invisible beings that are all around us. You might see them very clearly, you might feel them, you might hear them. All these things are extremely likely to happen. It's also very, very possible that you get a kind of rush of creativity, that you start to feel all of your art skills coming back to life, that you start to notice yourself wanting to paint, to draw, to write, to sing, to whatever it is that you're into, growing flowers in your garden, and just noticing all that joyful, playful creativity coming back. It's also very possible that you're noticing a sense of balance within your body's elements. And I mean the basic elements, right? So earth, water, air, fire, and ether. Each person is born with these elements in a certain balance, but after soul loss, they will be misaligned. So again, after soul loss, it's very possible that you feel yourself more harmonious, more grounded, more flowy, better, breathing better, having your fire, your energy replenished. It's also very possible that you experience more physical energy, more mental energy on all levels. It's also very possible that you feel a greater sense of flow, that your awareness increases, and perhaps even that you notice some changes in your personality, and that makes absolute sense, doesn't it? So let's talk about the actual soul retrieval then. Obviously, I'm not going to go into it in this presentation. This is a presentation about soul retrieval. The actual soul retrieval is a full ceremony, and it will take you maybe 2 hours to do the soul retrieval work itself. But it's really important that, like I said before, that you have ample time to rest after. So what is required for soul retrieval? Well, number one, to have an open mind. To have a desire to mend, to heal, to grow. It's also important that we understand that only you can determine the outcome of these journeys. Nobody else has control over you. This is the point of taking your personal power back, understanding that you are in control. It's also important that we allow for the mysterious, that not everything will be understood on a conscious level. I want to say as well that just like most things, proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. So the success of soul retrieval can really be in your preparation. Here are some tips. Schedule well. Make sure you have time, make sure you have space, make sure you're going to be undisturbed, very important. If there's animals around, if you have a pet, that's probably going to be fine if your animal is sensitive and attuned to energy work. If you have like a puppy or a pet that is quite ignorant of such things, I would recommend that you put them in another room or put them somewhere where they're really not going to disturb you, because you don't want an animal to start jumping on you when you're journeying. Same with kids. I also want to highlight the recommendation, or actually let's just call it a rule. Absolutely no toxic substances or alcohol at least 24 hours before and after the soul retrieval. But I would really like that to be longer. I think at least 72 hours would be my personal recommendations. Prepare in advance so that you can have a healing dream the night before to get some guidance and intuition. Make sure you have access to nature before and after the soul retrieval. Make sure you have access to a support system so that you're not doing the soul retrieval and then rushing into the office and being told that you have all this stressful stuff that you need to do, or that your children understand that mommy or daddy is going to be a little bit tired, or your partner understands that you might be a little bit extra sensitive, or you might have a lot of emotions. You might just need a cry, and not to explain everything. So make sure that your support system is in place. If you feel like you don't have a support system, reach out to somebody and just let them know that you might need some help just to talk. Maybe you just call them on the phone, again, not within the next 24 hours, but in the following few days, just to kind of feel yourself received by somebody. And the final preparation is you got to be willing to change. If you're going to bring these soul pieces back and you think that you can just keep being the person that you were before, that there's going to be absolutely no concessions on your part, bringing these pieces of your piece, your big piece, back home, it's not going to work. They're going to be feeling rejected. I'm not saying that you have to quit your job or move to another country or anything wild like that, but there has to be a willingness to change and adapt and grow. Almost at the end. Final things when we're going on a journey: preparation, preparation, preparation. Make sure you have the space and the time. Make sure you cleanse yourself. I recommend doing several of the practices that we've talked about before. So smudging, doing all of that, but also having a proper shower, doing some dry scrubbing, using the oil and baking soda cleanse, washing your hair, all of those things, brushing your hair, cleaning the space around you where you're going to do the journey from. It's hard to do a good journey if you're in a place that's a big mess, so that's one part, but also saging the space, cleaning the space, creating a sacred center, grounding with yourself, maybe going outside for a walk, like I said, in nature, walking barefoot, or in some way getting really centered and grounded. Maybe some breath work will help. Protect the space. Do your practices to create a sacred space for your journey. Be clear on your intentions, and then move into the journey. Again, there will be many guidelines for me to follow. There's going to be audios that you can listen to as you journey. If you feel like, fuck it, you're completely ready to do this on your own, well done. Trust your inner shaman. If you want my help, I'm here. If it's through the work that I have pre-created for you, you can use that material. But if you really feel like you would like somebody to be there with you and journey with you together, I'm here. Let me know. It's a service that I offer. And finally, my beautiful, beautiful soul, may you journey safe. May you journey safe. Onward ever, backward never. We are here to become whole, spiritual adults in our own right, and people of tremendous power. Thank you for your time and your attention.